Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would like, first of all, to thank you for having me speaking to this very distinguished audience this morning. And I would like to tell you that I will be speaking from this seat on my capacity as a former minister of the Palestinian Authority and as a Palestinian who was the first to land in Madrid, October 1991, for the Madrid Peace Conference. And at that time, I did not have gray hair and I was not married. My son now is at university and I have seriously gray hair. But I would like also to mention to you that until the 5th of November, last November, the Palestinian delegation to the last peace talks were only 2 people, my brother and friend, Dr. Saib Erekat, and myself. So I make 50% of the Palestinian delegation. So I will speak to you on that capacity. I don't know whether, Mr. Chairman, this qualifies me to take more than 10 minutes or not, but I leave that to you.
No way, no way. Don't
I thought it's worth trying, but let me shed some light to you on where things are. And I was asked to speak about whether a two-state solution is still possible. But before I do so, I would like to add my fingerprint to all what has been mentioned by Ambassador Pierre, who eloquently painted a very serious, realistic picture of all what is happening in Palestine. Now let me come to my intervention. Is a two-state solution still possible? I would like to say yes, until the 29th of April 2014. And I would like you to watch this date. Why? Because this date is the time frame in which the 9 months of the talks will end, whether we will have or whether we will have not a Palestinian-Israeli agreement. Legally, Mr. Chairman, Palestinian state is there and it has been recognized by 138 countries. What is needed now is the manifestation of the state on the ground on the basis of what has been mentioned earlier. Now, but before we go into this direction, I would like to bring to your attention 3 important events that are happening now. One is the Palestinian-Israeli negotiations that are shepherded by the United States at a time when there is a quartet that has been totally marginalized. Europe is part of the quartet, but it is not a player. Russia, United Nations as well. And what is happening now, or the main question for me and for all of us, that bloodshed in Palestine is not as up to the level of what is happening in Syria. The events in Iraq are more serious than what is happening in Palestine. Egypt and the political heat of Egypt is maybe more important. The question is, why is it that John Kerry is giving all this focus on Palestine? I will come to answer this question in the course of my intervention. But also, the other important thing is what is happening in the Arab region. And your morning session had to do with the regional developments. Mr. Chairman, I don't call what is happening in the Arab region an Arab Spring. I call it a change of seasons and not an Arab Spring. Because no way on earth that I will call what happened in Libya, a NATO war in Libya, can be classified as an Arab Spring. Or what is happening in Syria can be called an Arab Spring. So what is happening here is a change of seasons, yes, whether regardless of how long each season is. But we have all known from history that revolutions in general are always launched by brave people or adventurers, launched by adventurers, led by brave people, and most of the time they are harvested by opportunists. Whether the opportunists in this case are the Islamists or not, that's a totally different story. I leave it to your analysis. The third important element that we need to take in consideration is the Palestinian reality, which is really suffering from a serious split. And neither the Hamas resistance, al-Muqawama, is really working well, nor the track of negotiation is going to end occupation. And we will see how does this reflect itself on the issue of the Palestinian state. The question today for me is, where are we now? Where are we now? Today we are in the following reality. Israel has employed so many mechanisms of control that puts the whole Palestinian geography and demography under full control. 95% of the electricity supply to the Palestinian territory comes from Israel. Israel has full control of over water resources. The road network in Palestine that used to look like, according to Meron Ben-Venisti, a fishbone going from Hebron to Jenin, today it has been totally redesigned in a way to incorporate the Palestinian territories into that of Israel, and most of the roads are going east-west rather than south-north. When you make a phone call from Palestine to anybody in Jordan or elsewhere on his cellular telephone, what appears on your screen is 972, which is a code for Israel, and not 970, which is a code for Palestine. Actually, that code used to be for South Yemen, and when Yemen was united, so we had that 970 as a code for Palestine. What I am saying is that also 185 Jewish settlements has been built in the Palestinian territory with 631,000 settlers who have been living there. $4.1 billion of goods are imported from Israel or via Israel, and all what Palestine exports to Israel is only $350 million of goods and commodities. 115,000 Palestinian cheap laborers, they work in Israel. So there is all these sort of elements that I call mechanisms of control that Israel is employing to keep the Palestinians under occupation. The Israeli occupation to the Palestinian territory has no cost. It is cost-free. The Israeli occupation to the Palestinian territory makes profit. And when Israel speaks about the Jordan Valley, the security value of the Jordan Valley, if any of you drives a car in the Jordan Valley, you will realize that the Jordan Valley is an economic zone and not a security zone. The Jordan Valley and the settlements there has exported $361 million of agricultural commodities to Europe and to other places and so on. So one has to get the facts right. The other issue I would like to mention is that also the reality today is that the world believes that there is actually a well-functioning Palestinian Authority. You know, we have a passport, we have a president, we have a government, we have all these sort of things. It is fine. But this Palestinian Authority is under occupation, and this Palestinian Authority has no authority. It is just the name. If the president of the Palestinian Authority would like to travel between Ramallah and Nablus, he needs a permit from the Israeli military governor, and so on and so forth. Now, also, where are we today? The Palestinian people are steady fasting. They would like to achieve peace and justice, and they would like to have a state of their own. And where are we today, Mr. Chairman, is that Europe is really taking a real measure. Europe is implementing what is called European guidelines, in which European assistance to the settlements in beyond the 1967 border are really under a sort of embargo. It is not that is Israel under sanction, it is the Israeli measures that have been and are under sanctions. And one has to differentiate between really calling for delegitimization of Israel or delegitimization of the colonization program that Israel is implementing in the Palestinian territory. And I think people should not be really frightened from this stuff. Now, when it comes to negotiations, I would like to mention to you a few things. I believe that Secretary Kerry is sincere. I have met with him 6-7 times. I think he is very sincere. I think he is very dedicated. And I think he means well. And I think when I asked him, why is it that you focus on Palestine at a time when the whole region is really boiling? He said that Palestine-Israel is the only track that United States has some leverage on. Because the United States does not have much influence on what is happening in Syria, not much influence on what is happening in Iraq, not much influence on what is happening in Egypt, and they are pulling out of Afghanistan. And every secretary would like a fingerprint in history that I have tried to do something. And it has been the case from day one Palestinian. But Mr. Chairman, you see, in order for you to have a successful negotiations, you need some sort of qualifications. You need a clear terms of reference, what they call terms of reference. What does it mean? It means we and the Israelis, we should be reading from the same book. Actually, today we are not. One. Secondly, you need what they call in negotiations CBMs, confidence building measures. In order, I have to empower the Israeli counterpart, and the Israelis, they have to empower me in order for us to reach an agreement. What is the point if every single day I am discrediting the Israelis and the Israelis are discrediting me? Then you reach no agreement because you are a powerful party versus a very weak party, and two imbalanced situations does not really reach a solution. Now, on CBMs, I would like to tell you, because one of you might ask me, why did I resign from the delegation? I would like to answer in advance. Look, instead of us empowering the Israelis, and the Israelis are empowering us, since the talks have started on the 29th of July 2013, 33 Palestinians have been killed. 600 houses have been demolished. 7,620 settlement units have been announced, and 415 Palestinians were arrested. So if the measures on the ground are discrediting not only me, but the measures on the ground are discrediting the process itself, and therefore the credibility of the process becomes really very, very slim. A successful peace talks also needs a time frame. We have a time frame, 9 months, that will end on the 29th of April. I will come to my conclusion in 5 minutes. And then the other important point, that peace talks, they need an honest broker. We have a broker. We have a broker. And that broker is John Kerry. But the most important side of the story is that you need peace talks, they need intentions. They need good intentions. As you rightly said, the Palestinians have made incredible compromises. We said we are ready to accept a third party, NATO, European forces, whatever you want, to replace the Israelis. We are ready to accept Palestine as a demilitarized zone. We are ready to share Jerusalem, the all of Jerusalem. We are, and so on. We are ready to accept the swap. The swap is not a Palestinian request. The swap is an Israeli request. Now, where do we want to go? And this is my conclusion, Mr. Chairman. You have 3 scenarios. The Israelis, where is David? You said, sir, that the Israelis don't have plan B. I would like to tell you that the Israelis, they do have plan B. What is plan B? Is to maintain the status quo. One. And second important scenario that we might face is that the talks will collapse. If the talks will collapse, Palestinians, we have a plan B. What is the plan B? Is to confront Israel at the international forums. We don't deny that. We will apply to all UN agencies, and therefore that will be our attempt to not only going to the UN is not a face saving for the failure of the peace talks. Is not to improve our conditions on the negotiating table, but to internationalize the Palestinian question so international law becomes applicable to Palestine. And this is the most important side of the story. Now, if by the 29th of April, things are not possible, Mr. Chairman, having 185 Jewish settlements with 631,000 settlers. Today, going back to the statistics, you see, those who live between the Mediterranean and the River Jordan, today we are 1 to 1. 1 to 1. Every Jewish person has a Palestinian in front of him. So it's 1 to 1. Going back to statistics, by the year 2020, those who will be living between the Mediterranean and River Jordan will be 52% of them will be Palestinians. So a minority of Jewish people will be governing a majority of the Palestinians. Where does this take us? And this is my concluding remark. This takes us to a situation which I call the sud-africanisation of the Palestinian question. Either Israel has to choose between today and the 29th of April that seriously Israel wants a Palestinian state to manifest itself on the borders of 1967, or Israel will by de facto and by de jure becomes an apartheid state. Not because I decided so, because they decided to be so. But my concluding hopeful remark is that there is an international consensus that the two states is the win-win situation for both. And I hope that with the remaining time, this situation is achievable. Even though when Ehud Barak was asked by Václav Havel, he asked him, Mr. Prime Minister, why don't you live with the Arabs? He told him, my mother came all the way from Poland, not wanted to live with the Polish. Definitely she does not want to live with the Arabs. Mr. Chairman, I assure you, I would like to live with the Israelis side by side in two states in which we should politically divorce each other, but we will have economic marriage, future marriage, and different cooperation fields. And I keep to continue to be hopeful with such a distinguished audience. Thank you very much.